Why was it work when I got in?
We did send that to you last week.
I apologize.
No, that's all right. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
There is one thing. I printed it out.
We're still on trying to get to that.
I think so.
I got it.
Okay, if we'll move on to information reports. Foundation for Catholic Community Colleges, a Vision for Success, item 4.1. Chancellor, did you?
I will simply introduce the president of the foundation, Keitha Mills. Keitha, as all of us know, is the leader of the foundation. We have a couple of board members that serve on that. Keitha, I'll let you talk about that.
Thank you. Good morning, President Baca, members of the board, Chancellor Harris. Really pleased to be with you here today to talk about the foundation's next 5-year strategic plan and really our vision through 2020. So today's presentation, I'm going to touch a little bit on the history of the foundation, some of our major accomplishments in 2014, and then move into our new strategic goals for 2015 and what we're looking to accomplish specifically in this next year in 2015. So we were formed in 1998. We're the official auxiliary nonprofit to the Chancellor's Office and Board of Governors. So in our formation, we have a separate 9-member board of directors. 2 members are Board of Governors members, Member Reed and Member Zumi, both serve both on the Board of Governors and on the foundation board. And then I have 7 board members from the public. We were formed in 1998, which means we're about 15 years old. So we're kind of in that honorary teenager era of our corporate life. And if you look back on the history of the foundation, you know, the first 10 years of our existence was really about forming and putting together programs and services and philanthropic programs to support the system. And our founding CEO was very entrepreneurial, so a number of our programs are very, very entrepreneurial in nature. And so as you begin to learn more and more about the foundation and who we are and what we do, it's a really dynamic mix of entrepreneurial business opportunities coupled with philanthropy as well. So it's not your typical foundation when you think about foundation work. So the first 10 years we really spent kind of pulling business opportunities together. And the last 5 years have really been spent trying to meld those programs and services and business opportunities into a cohesive, collaborative operation, and then looking to where we want to go longer term as we continue to grow as an organization. So 2014 marks the end of our last 5-year strategic plan. So June 30 marks the end of our fiscal year. And so we've just wrapped up our last 5-year strategic plan. And the goals here in front of you were the goals that we were operating under over the last 5 years. And you'll notice as you look through those goals, they're very internal focused. So I talked about, you know, really the last 5 years has been very much kind of looking internally, really looking at what are the programs and services that we're offering that we have core competencies in? Are there things that we're doing maybe that we shouldn't be doing that really don't fall within our core competencies? Are our revenue streams diversified enough to ensure our long-term stability? Are we really collaborating effectively? And when we looked at collaboration over the last 5 years, it was both internally, are the programs and services that we're running collaborating with each other, and are we also collaborating with all of our constituent groups out in the field? 5 years ago when I joined the foundation, I think we were probably the best kept secret in the system. So we've spent a lot of time and energy over the last 5 years increasing awareness about who we are and what we do and the various programs and services that we offer. And we've also spent a lot of time and effort around making sure that we have the infrastructure that's necessary to sustain the programs and services that we have, but to also grow and continue to be successful into the future. So this has been the framework that we've been under over the last 5 years. So just looking at the past year, I want to highlight a couple of accomplishments that we're really proud of. So in our 15th year, we've been able to reach all 112 colleges, and we've supported over 95,000 students and 4,000 faculty and staff through a myriad of programs and services. And you can see here, this is a long list of things that we do, and it's very diverse. So everything from aggregate purchasing to automotive technician training to general student internships. We run a nursing program. We provide scholarships through the Osher endowment. We ran a federally funded digital literacy service program, and the list goes on. So we're really proud of our ability to reach the system as a whole and also touch a number of students. Through our Fusion program, we were able to assess about a third of the buildings throughout the state. So we've assessed over 37 million square feet over a 12-month period through the Fusion program. And that helps campuses identify maintenance needs and capital outlay needs. We realized over $17 million in cost savings through our aggregate purchasing programs, and that was savings that was realized by colleges, faculty, staff, and students through our College Buys program. We provided over $10 million in direct grants and other financial support to colleges. So that's $10 million that went out to directly support our colleges and our students. And we secured over $13 million in new funding just in prior year alone. And again, that $13 million is very diverse. It reaches a number of programs and services, but as I talked about yesterday, our primary focus has been on student success and workforce development efforts. We directly funded about $250,000 to support Chancellor's Office and Board of Governors activities. We're managing now restricted investment funds that total $90 million, and we're very proud of our investment return over the last year was a double-digit return of 11%, so that's really helpful in continuing to grow those endowments and grow the distributions that come from them. Our budget is about $30 million, so we generate about $30 million in total revenue on an annual basis, and we're very lean. 90 cents of every dollar that comes into the foundation goes back out in direct support for our colleges and our students. I'm also very proud of this last point that we continue to grow our unrestricted operating reserves. So this past year we were able to grow our unrestricted reserves by $500,000, and we now have about $2 million of a nest egg, and it's not enough. We're continuing to focus on kind of growing that nest egg to make sure that we can remain nimble and sustainable into the future. And finally, over the last year, we spent a lot of time and effort in developing our new long-range strategic plan. That's going to be our roadmap over the next 5 years to get us to 2020. So we looked at the strategic goals and the framework that we've been operating over the last 5 years, and I talked about the fact that it was very internal. We've been kind of getting the house in order over the last 5 years. So as we looked to 2020, it was like, okay, we feel really good that the house is in order. Now, where do we want to focus over the next 5 years, and how do we want to think about what we do? So you can see the goals over the next 5 years are much more external looking. So less about the what we do, and much more about the so what behind what we do. So the strategic plan over the next 5 years is really focused on how does our work impact students? How does our work impact the California community colleges? How does our work impact our college foundations and the local fundraising efforts that's happening throughout the state? How are we supporting you and the Chancellor's Office and the Vice Chancellors around the table? And we always want to be mindful of that infrastructure, so we want to still make sure that our house stays in order. Now that the house is in order, we want to keep the house in order so that we can continue to grow and sustain into the future. So specifically, as we look at how we benefit students, we're really looking at expanding access, success, and outcomes through student-centered resources and tools. When we support our community colleges, we're looking at strengthening the colleges by providing access to shared resources, simplified processes, and innovative, scalable, and sustainable program services and solutions. With our local college foundations, we're looking to promote more collaboration and bolster the capacity of our community college-based foundations to really support the local fundraising efforts that's happening in our local communities. As we look to support the Chancellor's Office and the Board of Governors, we're really looking, again, to further the mission and goals that you set. So it was really important to be around the table yesterday and talk about the work that's happening with the System Office Strategic Plan, because as I said yesterday, our mission is to support your mission and our priorities are your priorities. So it's really important that we stay in lockstep and that we are bringing in resources that help promote your goals and priority, and really expanding the money that's coming in from the state level and diversifying the types of resources that move your goals forward. And finally, when we look at the foundation and our own internal infrastructure, we're really looking to foster a culture of excellence in all that we do. Excellence, integrity, shared leadership, empowering our people to be leaders in everything that we do, and really promoting a culture of shared success so that we have high quality infrastructure, that we continue to elevate our organizational profile, and that at the end of the day that we exceed our constituent expectations. So as we move into 2015, you'll see that what we're doing isn't going to change drastically. What's changing is how we think about what we do, how we talk about what we do, and what our hope is that makes us even more and more successful and provides even more and more benefit to our constituents. So we're looking to expand the annual cost savings for faculty, staff, and students to $20 million, $17 million this last year. We want to grow that to over $20 million in 2015. We want to sustain the programs and services that provide direct support to our colleges and maintain that $10 million of direct support that we've been incurring. We want to enhance our efforts to help the local fundraising efforts through the network of California Community College Foundations. Continue the collaboration and the relationships that have been built over our 15-year history to make sure that we're supporting student success, workforce development, and other statewide priorities and initiatives as you guys move into your next strategic planning process. And finally, and this is really, really important for us as a separate nonprofit, is that it's really important that we maintain our flexibility and our innovation, but we also need to stay focused so that we are able to seize new opportunities when they come our way, but that we're really assessing each opportunity as it comes our way to determine sort of what I talked about yesterday. Does the opportunity fit within our core competency? Does it fit within the priorities of the system and meet a need of the system? And is it also forwarding the funders' goals as well? When we look over at 2015, we're expecting a fairly flat budget. We want to achieve another $30 million year with 90 cents of every dollar going directly to program and service delivery. And if you look at that, you may think, well, that doesn't sound very exciting, so you're just going to keep doing what you're doing. That $30 million is really a stretch goal for us, because as you look at how our money comes in, there's about 20 to 25 million that is ongoing business opportunities, and another 5 to 10 million that's new grant money coming in every year. So as those new grants come in, they typically have anywhere from a 1 to 3 year life. So every year we have anywhere from between $5 to $10 million of grant funding that's expiring, and so we're having to continually fill that pipeline, find new funders, diversify those funding streams, find new projects to support the system. So the $30 million, while it's flat with this last year, it is a stretch goal for our work. We expect to maintain our direct funding for the work that you do. And again, we're looking for another year of growth in our unrestricted operating reserves, working toward a goal of at least $3 million or 1% of our operating revenue. So as we move forward under this new strategic plan with a focus on students, colleges, college foundations, and the system, our vision for the future is to be the trusted partner of the California community colleges, looking to facilitate collaboration, accelerating innovation, and increasing system-wide resources. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, can I ask you a question?
Member Avalos,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So, last year you guys allocated $10 million in grants, is that correct?
Correct.
Can you explain a little bit about the process of how you go through that process of allocating grants and how can college or, partner solicit grants?
Yeah, so the $10 million is made up of a wide array of programs and services. So there's about $4 million of that goes towards student scholarships that all 112 colleges get a distribution from the Osher Scholarship Fund. And those distributions are calculated and spelled out in the grant agreement. And I would say that that's pretty much the case in the other programs and services that we run as well. So we typically will receive money from a funder, that is looking to make a broad impact in the system. And they don't necessarily want to go out and negotiate with, 10, 12, 15, 20 colleges that are, doing the work that they want to accomplish. So they'll come through us and say, okay, foundation, we're going to give you $5 million. We'd like for you to do the administrative oversight of the program and get that money out to the colleges that are doing the work. So the majority of the grants that we do are negotiated with the funder and dependent on the type of work that the funder is doing and the colleges that participate in that work. There are programs where the funder will give us money and say, we want to do this work. Can you go tell us which colleges do this? And in those cases, we will issue RFPs. And then the colleges, so that's sent out, and we work very closely with the vice chancellors to identify the colleges that meet the needs, to get the information out to the colleges so that they can then apply for the funding.
Member Epstein?
Can you tell me a little bit about the relationship between the individual foundations for the colleges and what you do and how that interacts? I'd like to know also, does every college have a foundation, and how does that work?
Yeah, so almost every college has a foundation. I think there are a handful, probably less than 5, that don't have foundations. And the foundations, the local college foundations, really range quite variably in their capitalization and level of sophistication. So we have some really small foundations that are formed but maybe really don't do much other than scholarships, and then we have other foundations that are really very sophisticated, running their own entrepreneurial operations in their local communities. For us, the most important thing for us is that we don't compete with what's happening at the local level. So the work that happens at the local level is really, it's very community-based, and it's their fundraising efforts include foundations, but they do a lot more kind of individual one-on-one fundraising. So we typically refrain from entering into kind of that individual donor relationship, because those relationships are really best cultivated in the community. We also try to refrain from soliciting foundation dollars that are really community-based dollars, because that's really the niche is there in the community. So when we look for foundation relationships, we're looking for foundations that are wanting to make a statewide or a regional impact, and so that we can help facilitate getting the money into those communities. We provide fiscal sponsorship and staffing services for a separate organization that's called the Network of California Community College Foundations. And the network is organized as a membership entity where all of the local foundations pay membership dues, and they come together and really work on advocacy, professional development, sharing best practices among all the college foundations that exist at the local level. So we provide direct support, $50,000 of direct support for their activities, and we staff their operations as well. So it's a very collaborative relationship. The work is very different from what we do versus what happens at the local level, but we try to support the work that they do and enhance the work that we do.
Do you also try to help them find prospects for funding in their local community?
You know, that's not something that we've historically engaged in because it's very difficult for us to really know their individual communities. And so it's really, you know, each of the foundations have a separate executive director that's really ingrained in their community. Now, we have had occasions where we've had local foundations come to us and say, I have a funder in my community, and they really have capacity to give more than just my community, and will you help us talk to them? And so in that case, we'll go in and we'll try to pitch something, you know, a little bit bigger and broader, where the money, you know, not only impacts the community that they're in, but maybe they get a little bit broader reach from that work.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Chancellor Harris?
I just want to follow on the comment, and the question you ask is an excellent one, and I want to compliment Keith and her staff, because they have to walk an extremely fine line in this regard, and she does a wonderful job, she and the staff do a wonderful job of not treading on local foundations' territory. In fact, as she pointed out, even reaching out and trying to help professionalize those local foundations. So this is one of Keitha and her staff's strengths, and I appreciate you asking that question. I think it's very important for the board to know.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll move on to information item 4.2 CT Enhancement Fund. Chancellor?
Thank you, President Baca, members of the board. I'm going to turn this over to Vice Chancellor Ton Quinlivan. And again, I want to thank our guests and apologize to them because this is one of the activities we had to postpone at a previous meeting. So we genuinely appreciate you coming back. We're really glad to see you. Vaughn?
Thank you, President Baca, Chancellor Harris, and members of the board. If you don't mind, I'm going to flip 4.3 with 4.2 and do 4.2 later because our guests have a hard back end at 12 o'clock. So as we discussed yesterday, the workforce need is great, and the lift that has to be done for the state actually is done in partnership with many other state agencies, braiding efforts and resources, and we want to model what we would like to see out in the field. You met the employment training panel previously. Invited with me here are Tim Rainey, Executive Director of the California Workforce Investment Board, and Lupita Cortez Alcala, who is Deputy Superintendent of Instruction and Learning Support from our K-12 agency called the California Department of Education. I have prepared 3 questions for each to pepper them to really give you a feel for the partnership, which is ongoing, and we'll open to the board right after. So Tim, you and I have been talking about sectors and regions even before we started these jobs. Unemployment is down. Should we rest? Do we have a workforce need?
Vaughn did not share these questions with us in advance, so I had no idea she was going to answer. So I had no time to prepare. Chancellor Harris, Chairman Baca, and members, thanks very much for this opportunity. I wanted to spend half a second on the State Workforce Board because I'm not sure everybody knows what it is. We're established in federal law. Every state's required to have one for Congress's biggest jobs program, the Workforce Investment Act. In California, we administer around $500 million a year. It actually goes to the Employment Development Department and down to 49 local workforce investment boards. And the state board sets policy on those investments. We're 51% business and about 15% labor by state statute, 51% business by federal statute. We have an unwieldy 52-person board. Chancellor Harris is on that board, and we work very closely with Vaughn Quinlivan and do terrific work. So should we rest on our laurels? Heck no. For a few reasons, at least. One is, I think as you saw yesterday in your retreat, the data on workforce, we're using the same points. The business and industry around the state is still demanding skilled workers. We don't have an undersupply of skilled, or rather an oversupply of skilled workers. We have an undersupply depending on how you look at the data. So I won't go into what the data is because you've seen that. But importantly, we increasingly have 2 Californias. We have the coastal part of California, the centers of innovation in California and the nation, in fact, where we've got 5 to 6% unemployment up and down the coast. Inland, you don't have to go too far very inland to find double-digit unemployment from 21% in Imperial Empire to 26% up far north. This is a big challenge. We've got to figure out how to close this gap. All over the state, though, African Americans, the unemployment rate is twice that of whites. For Latinos, it's about 1.5 times that of whites. So in addition to the east-west divide, we have communities all over the state that have been experiencing recession long before the recession hit us, and will continue to unless we take bold action. And the third piece is we're leaving a generation behind. For 16 to 24-year-olds in the state of California, which is 17% of our population, about 5 million people, 60% are not in school and 18% are neither in school nor in work, so they're disconnected. We've got to figure out ways, and there are many different things we can do that we've talked about and some that we haven't really focused on to help connect young people to pathways to jobs, but also quality education and certifications that will lead directly to jobs. Mike Rossi, who's the chair of the State Workforce Investment Board, he's also the governor's senior jobs advisor, has been pushing the State Workforce Board to focus on income mobility in the state of California, which is not just a problem here, but across the nation in all industrialized countries. However, in the United States, the biggest determinant of your future earnings is not how hard you work. This is different than Western Europe. The biggest determinant of your future earnings is not your education level, how hard you work, or whether or not you play by the rules. The biggest determinant of your future earnings is where you were born and what family you're born into. So more than any other industrialized nation, parental income matters more for your future earnings than any other factor. This is a real challenge, and our board chair has directed the State Workforce Board to focus all of our policies and initiatives to moving the needle on income mobility in the state of California.
So then your second question, Tim, is that, the federal government just passed the Workforce Investment and Innovation Act, and President Biden rolled out the 7 jobs-driven principles for shaping the flow of $14 billion in federal funds. How's this going to affect our state in terms of planning?
Again, I had no idea this was coming. The State Workforce Board set out a state strategic plan actually a couple of years ago now, and it just so happens that the federal law mostly codifies what we put in our state strategic plan, thankfully. So the White House's 7 points very much align with our kind of broad workforce development principles. Regional coordination, I think you've been talking about this maybe yesterday, regional coordination to align existing resources around a vision for each region of the state of California. Industry employer leadership from sectors that are driving regional employment, industry valued credentials that we can develop through direct connections to the labor market through work-based learning, earn and learn models like apprenticeship, paid internships, and on-the-job training, and clear career pathways where we align programs at the local and regional level so that we can support people along those pathways to good jobs, and then measuring what matters. So in case you hadn't heard them, I wanted to reiterate those for you. The Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, which is the new federal, reauthorized federal law, requires that all states do joint planning among the broad spectrum of workforce education employment services. So we're challenged and tasked now with working with the Community College Chancellor's Office, with the Department of Education, with corrections, labor agency programs, health and human services, and others at the state level to craft a joint 5-year plan for the investment of our broad $4 billion investment in workforce employment services and training in the state. So this is a great opportunity because, as you know, federal dollars come into California and are administered through about 4 or 5 different agencies and about 13 different departments and around 30 different programs. And they're all blocked in silos that have their own outcome requirements, have their own strings attached. So it's very difficult to do the kinds of things at the regional level that the federal law is asking for, what the state strategic plan is asking for. So we've got a lot of work to do to sort of break down those silos so we can, as Vaughn likes to say, braid together these resources to help people move up to good jobs and improve their income ability across the state.
Thank you. So Lupita, your agency was blessed with $250 million last year to put on the California Career Pathway Trust. Member Belansky had asked to ask some questions about it. I was wondering if you could just quickly overview the goals of the trust, as well as what did you learn that will continue in the second round this year, and what elements will you continue?
Thank you once again for inviting us to be here. President Baca, Chancellor Harris, and board members of the Board of Governors, I bring you greetings on behalf of the State Superintendent, Tom Torlakson. He's been touring up and down the state, visiting some of these 39 grantees, and it's been having an amazing time. First, I wanted to mention that the $250 million from last year and the $250 million investment this year, the $500 million, is the largest investment in the nation. So California is often the trend center, so I didn't want that to go unnoticed as well. So the intention or the goal was really to build robust partnerships, real partnerships between the community colleges, schools, and business and industry. And so the community colleges are actually perfectly situated to do that. And they actually, of the 39 recipients, of the first $250 million, I believe 12 community college districts were the lead agency, and partners, and many, many of the others. In fact, we're sort of required partners. And the idea really is to build, to have better prepared students for 21st century workplace, improve the transition into post-secondary education, training, and employment. So while you could earn up to, go for a $15 million grant, a $6 million, or a $600,000 grant, it was really the quality of the regional application that won the grantees. There are 3-year grants, but we asked for a 5-year budget because we wanted to ensure that after the end of the grant, it wasn't just going to be done. And we really tried to model that between the California Community Colleges, Vaughn, and her staff, as well as Tim Rainey, and workforce investment, along with the Department of Education. We modeled what we wanted in the application. And while we've gone in on many grants in the past, I have to say this is probably one of the best well-run models that we've been able to implement together, and I think that's why it was so successful. What we've learned: we had a high demand. Of the $250 million, we had $700 million in demand. Couldn't award them all. We had to only award the outstanding. It was really the true leadership of Senator Steinberg, the legislature, and the governor that secured the $250 the first time and the second time. And of course, all of our collective support. I think that many consortiums began the work ahead of time. What I've said before is when we said we wanted regional economic applications, we meant regional. So those that won were truly regional. Like I said, community colleges were perfectly situated for that work because that's what you do. Some areas of the state needed planning and development. We realized some weren't ready to apply for the $6 million or $600,000. So in this next round, we're thinking about including planning grants for those that aren't quite ready to go for the entire, but want to play and want time to prepare. We've provided lots of technical assistance. Again, we're going to go do workshops throughout the state, again, together, talking about what we mean by regional economic needs and this partnership. But at the same time, we're going to talk about what they need to do to secure the grant. High scoring applications, I think that's the next question. You want me to go into that?
Yes.
Want me to go into that? So it's really interesting. Out of the 39, the highest scoring applicants reference Doing What Matters and use specific data from Doing What Matters in their applications. Applicants needed to defend their partnerships and their pathways that they chose. And in order to defend, they had to make sure that the regional economy supported that demand in a job, the high skill, high wage job. And so you should be really proud of that as well. They also, many applicants reported that they consulted extensively with the deputy sector navigators in the application process, and they plan to continue the collaboration. So your investments in those 2 areas have really paid off because many of the applicants, and in fact the highest scoring, use Doing What Matters, and definitely reference the relationship with the deputy sector navigators, who positioned themselves perfectly to act as that intermediary between the business and the community college and the schools.
Thank you. in the interest of time, what I'd like to do is just open it up to the board. If you'd have any questions for our guests?
Questions? You know, you mentioned the requirement for a 5-year budget, 3 years funded. How heavily did that weigh in, and what kind of commitment is that more specifically?
Well, for school districts, for instance, there's the local control funding formula too, and the local control accountability plan. And so if this is a true reform effort from high schools, connecting high schools with post-secondary education and beyond, and included in that the partnership between business and industry, we expect that collaboration and that they put real skin in the game. They put real dollars in the game. If we're moving towards pathways, you know, because what parents and kids want, they want choices. They want gainful employment. After the recession and after the student, and as we're watching the student debt and the increase in student debt, what parents and students really want is gainful employment at the end of the day, whether they go on to 2-year or they go to 4-year. So what we're asking for, both in high school and community colleges and beyond, is that we start to shift, and we can go into the paradigm shift, is we need to put business and industry more in the driver's seat. We need to make sure that we're not setting up our kids for jobs that aren't going to be available. We need to make sure we set up our kids for jobs and training and 21st century skills that they're going to need. So we're asking school districts to shape their pathways in that vein. We're asking community colleges to work with the schools and 4-year institutions as well. And you need to put business and industry at the table.
Sure, and I know that commitment, of course, is very important, but I'm just wondering how that affected your pool of applicants. Did it
You know,
restrict somewhat?
well, we
Certain
had different
districts?
levels they could apply for, 600,000, 6 million, and 15 million. So the 15 million, you know, we want to wean you off of the grant eventually. So it's not going to be there forever.
Right.
It's a one-time for 3 years. So what we expect is most of the investment, the 6 million, is in professional learning, in creating the partnerships and the relationships, having the conversations in the sequence of courses. Most of that money is going to be used for one time, and then the rest is the ongoing regular infrastructure and funding that you would normally have to you know, provide those services to students and classes and teaching
Okay, thank you.
personnel.
Member Estolano?
Yeah, were there any surprises in the sectors that were chosen by some of these regions? And then also any surprises on the collaborations that came together?
I think, I think for us, I think the biggest surprise is how difficult it was for schools to make connections with business and industry. We don't speak business and industry, so it was hard to make that connection. But because we had this relationship, and we established this relationship during this process, workforce, and while we've always sat on a board or something like that, this was a real opportunity to connect when we went out and did workshops throughout the state to connect workforce investment boards with schools and said, oh, yeah, we have one of those in our region, and our county office and our community college have some, you know, work with the deputy sector navigator, you know, or something. And they made real connections based on just our working together. And the hardest part for the schools is having someone dedicated to doing that intermediary work with business and industry. I mean, I think wasn't a surprise. It was just made more, it was much more aware. And that's where you weren't at a disadvantage if you didn't have that. You just needed to include that in your application as something you wanted to develop.
Yeah, just to add, I'm not sure there was surprise in the sectors. What was really great about the process was the Department of Education didn't say, you know, the superintendent's office didn't say, go out and, you know, do labor market analysis, all brand new. They said, go work with your local workforce boards, go work with your economic development agencies, and kind of, you know, hitch your wagon to them because they've already done these studies, right? So we already knew that the sectors were probably going to be healthcare because it's really driving employment across the state, manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, especially the agricultural kind of value chain in the Central Valley. So these sectors that we all kind of talk about a lot here about, those were the ones that I think were really targeted in these applications. You know, just to build on what Pita was saying about the collaboration, that to me was a huge surprise. Or maybe that's not the word. Maybe it was just, it warmed my heart and made it real that this kind of work is actually possible. This kind of regional coalition building to get after solving big employment problems and getting people into good jobs through education pathways. The big $15 million grantees were required to come up to Sacramento and do an interview with us. And that's where it was very instructive, because you had economic development, business leaders, the workforce board folks, the K-12 folks, and the community college folks all coming in and explaining to us what their proposals were. We had the same list of questions that we asked all of the potential grantees. And you could tell right away which ones really had a high level of cooperation and coalition that had been building over the last several years. Those that didn't have that, it was very apparent. You can write a great proposal, you can hire good consultants and put stuff on paper, and it could look really beautiful. But when you're sitting there talking to folks and you're asking questions, the level of alignment and how deep it is very evident. And so the ones that got funded really demonstrated that they've been thinking through a lot of the challenges to building regional coalitions. There were a lot of big challenges in there, and they hadn't all figured them out. For instance, the governance issues, but they were well along the way of trying to figure out how to make this stuff work at the regional level. And I would just say one last thing on the work-based learning part, because it was a requirement for the funds that you develop not just career pathways, but you have a big work-based learning component. This is how you get employers to the table. And that's a challenge for the system. That's not just for the K-12 and community colleges, but also, frankly, for workforce investment boards, really figuring out how to get employers to the table in meaningful ways, and not as a public system talk to them separately at the regional level and drive them crazy, which is what we currently do, but come at employers with one voice and have them not only help us with curriculum and career pathways and mapping out to those in-demand occupations, but also employers investing in the training. So the work-based learning is an investment by employers. Paid internships are. Certainly formalized apprenticeship is a big investment. Investment by employers in education and job training has actually been declining over the last decades. We need to figure out how to really make this work.
Marie?
Is there a component in your study that will follow up as to the success of these programs after the third or the fifth year?
Yes, absolutely. There's an evaluation component. In fact, this sort of stems off of the Link Learning pilot programs that also the California Community Colleges invested in as well through some of the Perkins dollars that comes your way. And so we have between that, the California Partnership Academies that we've been doing since the 80s really, and this, we're going to really bring those all together in one evaluation. We had done a report called the Multiple Pathways Report. I think that was published in 2010. We're going to continue that report and put this evaluation, because there's no sense of asking that these three different grants applicants the same information. So we're going to combine them, and absolutely there will be an evaluation. And for some that are well on their way, there's going to be some really good results, and others where it's going to inform us on the process and on their way to implementing this bold reform.
Yeah, thank you for presenting. When I think about high tech in the Silicon Valley, did we partner there with any high tech companies? What was the result there? Anything you can add to that clarity around just, there's a lot of high tech jobs in demand, but just wondering where we are with that.
And I believe you got in your packet the partnership, overview, and I'd have to go look through some in that area that received a grant. I know Contra Costa, as well as Contra Costa Community College had Engineering Advanced Information Technology. Glendale Unified had Digital Manufacturing, Digital Media. If you go through some of these in the Silicon Valley, I'd have to check specifically for a community college in that area or a county office or a school district that received the grant. But it's definitely, let me look through there, and I'm happy to provide you that information on how many IT. There's another $250 million, so hopefully we can secure more funding in that area. It was pretty geographic. We were a little disappointed that Southern California, the San Diego, San Bernardino area wasn't as successful, so we're doing some a lot of reach out in that area, as well as the north and some rural areas. Not as many applicants from those areas, so we're going to do more of a reach out and hopefully provide technical assistance. But absolutely, there was quite a bit. The regional economy needs demand it, then you would get, you know, higher scoring application points for it.
Yeah, because I come from high tech, and we know we imported a lot of jobs to the Silicon Valley. And so, to me, it's like, and specific roles and jobs are high in demand. So, you know, Contra Costa is great, but it's definitely not San Jose, you know, San Mateo, San Francisco. So that's kind of the level of conversation I'd like to engage in.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you
Good.
both.
Very good. Thank you.
Shall I do 4.2?
4.3, sure. 4.2. Go ahead.
Thank you very much.
Or 4.2, excuse me.
Thank you for the time on that information item so that I could introduce to you some of the partners here at the state level. On item 4.2, this is, when we talked yesterday, we said that the legislature and the governor's office was very had a shared interest in workforce and asked how they could help our community colleges better respond to regional economies. And where we were, where our wall was needing some short-term relief in terms of one-time funds to help with the high cost of career technical education. So this pot of $50 million fund goes to equipment, curriculum development, professional development, and related costs to develop, enhance, retool, and enhance career technical education to meet regional economies. So just as an FYI, the funds will be administered in, there's two ways to access it. There's a regional share and a local share. So 60% of the funds are being set aside based on a formula for colleges to access based on their planning on how they plan to meet regional need. And then 40% of the funds are being set aside so that there's multi-college application in order to incentivize multi-college collaboration and planning. The monies will be administered to fiscal agents, to the regional consortia as fiscal agents, unless they designate an alternative entity, and so you'll see that in the consent items. And in order to support all our colleges to make sure that there's line of sight to labor market data, September will be a blitz of labor market data. There's a lot of regional forums being convened for the CTE deans so that they're very comfortable with what the data says, and they can bring that back to campus. So the administration of these funds were based on 14 field conversations, regional field conversations, and that's how we plan to approach the administration of these dollars.
Any questions or comments? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll move on to item 4.4, state and federal legislative update. Counselor?
Thank you, President Baca. Members of the board, I'll ask Vince Stewart, Vice Chancellor for Governmental Relations, to approach the podium, and he will give you a quick update on both the state and the federal legislation. Vince?
Thank you, President Baca, members of the board, Chancellor Harris. If I could briefly, just before getting into the state and federal legislative update, I wanted to respond to two of the questions that came up with respect to the appointment to the Commission on Teacher Credentialing. One is that as an ex officio member, so there is no defined term limit, and that person serves at the pleasure of this body. So at any time you could speak with that individual, have that individual present it to the body, and then make a determination as to whether service is something that you would want to have continue. The other thing I wanted to clarify is the Commission does meet every other month. However, they have a series of committees that meet in between those Commission meetings, so their schedule sort of is staggered throughout the year. So with that, I thought I would move into the state and federal legislative update. I know that yesterday at the retreat we covered a number of bills. We went through the legislation that is sponsored by the Board of Governors, the concurrent enrollment legislation, professional development, and then a fairly lengthy conversation around the baccalaureate degree and student safety and sexual assault. I was not going to review those again today, but I'm happy to take any questions that you might have. There are about 4 or 5 bills that I did want to just go over very briefly, and they are outlined in your board packet. And these I selected just based on the amount of attention that these issues have garnered. I think there's some interest among board members with some of these issues, so that's why I selected those. The first bill I wanted to mention is SB 1391, and this is legislation that has to deal with inmate education. The bill really would do two things, and again, this one is currently pending on the governor's desk, so it has not yet been acted upon, but it is something that we're hopeful will be signed into law. Nonetheless, it would allow our colleges to waive the open course requirements when providing courses to incarcerated youth. It would allow them to claim funding at the credit level for credit courses and at the non-credit level for non-credit courses. And then it also provides $2 million in grant funding for this agency to partner with the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation to really look at new and innovative ways of providing educational opportunities to incarcerated youth and to build upon some of the more successful programs that are around the state. There are a handful that are currently in place that I think have gotten very good results, and folks would like to see those expanded. So again, that legislation is pending before the governor. It's sponsored by Senator Lonnie Hancock. It has gotten, I think, widespread support, and I believe has the support of the administration and the Department of Finance as well.
And we've supported it.
And we are on record in support as well. And I should mention to that point, we have presented our letters to the governor on legislation that's pending before him. All of those are posted on our website, so if you go to the governmental relations page of the website, you can look up the letters and the positions.
Member Budnick, you have a comment on this item?
Yeah, quick question. I'm going over to see the governor's legislative staff directly after this. I see there's only one legislator in both bodies that voted against it, so I assume there's no opposition. Is that correct?
To my knowledge, there's no recorded opposition.
Great, thank you.
Sure. The other bills I wanted to highlight deal with governance and accreditation. I know this is an issue that we've talked a fair amount about. There are two bills now that are currently pending on the governor's desk for action. One is Assembly Bill 1942 by Assemblymember Rob Bonta. This legislation would require additional reporting on the part of the ACCJC in terms of its policies and its actions against colleges, and would also require the Board of Governors to ensure that that report was submitted to the legislature and the appropriate legislative committees. Again, that legislation is pending. We don't currently have a position on the bill in some measure because there is a question as to whether or not the state has an oversight authority role with the commission and to what extent it can compel the commission to supply those reports. But I think certainly the intent of that legislation is one that we support in terms of added transparency around the accreditation process and providing full disclosure and information. The other governance and accreditation bill I will mention is AB 2087 by Assemblymember Tom Amiano. This is legislation that would require the Board of Governors to really essentially spell out the process by which you would return a district that is under the purview of a special trustee back to the local governing board. I think this, quite honestly, is in line with the conversation that was had at the last Board of Governors meeting around City College of San Francisco. So I think it's certainly consistent with that process. If there's an issue there, it's that these instances are very, very rare and I think quite unique. So I think there is some question as to whether or not putting something into statute is going to be reflective of the unique circumstances that might come up when you have this situation arise. And I think certainly it's our feeling and intent from a staff perspective that this is not something we want to make a practice of, but the legislation nonetheless is pending before the governor. The other bills I wanted to mention to you are bills that deal with the Cal Grant system. There are two bills. There's one that's SB 174 by Senator Kevin De Leon and SB 978 also by Senator De Leon. These bills would, in one with 174, create a tax credit, if you will, and then 978 would be the authorizing legislation to allow that tax credit to increase the amount of Cal grants. In addition, there's a related measure that's AB 1876 by Assemblymember Quirk Silva, which would increase the number of Cal Grant awards that are awarded every year. I think we've had some discussion in the past in terms of the number of Cal Grants that are funded and the actual take rate of those grants among students. I think this is a way to try and increase the number of students who are actually able to receive those Cal Grants. We are supportive of 1876 as well as SB 174 and SB 978. So those were really in a rather brief fashion the bills that I wanted to highlight. Again, yesterday we spoke about AB 13, the legislation dealing with veterans, and then the companion legislation at the federal level that deals with the Veterans Administration and the requirements on the Secretary to fund only instructional activities that are charged at in-state tuition. So I wasn't going to go into any additional detail there. And in addition to that, Congress has been on recess since our last meeting, so there really hasn't been a lot to report back in terms of activity. But having said all that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about the other bills that are spelled out in your board packet, both on the state or federal side.
Member Nalliman?
I see there's something called HR 41 relative to the City College of San Francisco. Was that a U.S. House of Representatives?
It was not. So
Item?
we had two resolutions that were put through in the state legislature. One, HR 41, which was put forward by Assemblymember Tom Amiano. It's, quite honestly, I should know the history here, but I think it's somewhat of a coincidence that they use the HR terminology as they do in Congress for Assembly resolutions. There was also a Senate resolution that was put forward by Senator Mark Leno, and it was in essence language in support of City College of San Francisco and moving through the accreditation process and having it restore its or have its accreditation fully restored.
So why did they call it HR? I guess I don't understand that.
It's the distinction between a resolution which is coming through the state assembly versus one that would be coming through the state senate.
Or both houses together? Is that right?
They're separate. So the HR was debated and approved by the assembly, and the Senate resolution was a companion measure that was done by the Senate. Those don't have to go before the governor. They don't need to be signed into law. They're just resolutions, really an endorsement and a statement of both houses of the legislature.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Member Budnick.
Question about SB 1023, Carol Liu, community colleges foster youth, providing additional funds for services in support of foster youth. I see there was a unanimous vote with no opposition, which makes me think there's no appropriation, since every Republican here agreed. So how are we providing additional funds for services in support of post-secondary education for foster youth without any funds?
Well, we are supportive of this bill as well, certainly supportive of the intent. I think we're looking at providing additional funding for foster youth that came through our budget appropriation. And perhaps Vice Chancellor Michalowski might have more of the specifics since the foster youth program runs through her division. I'm trying to think if there was a specific dollar amount for foster youth.
I don't know the specific.
We can talk about this afterwards.
I don't know the specific dollar amount, but it was the intent of the sponsors of the bill to support a budget appropriation and to perhaps look for private nonprofit funds as well.
But this is simply saying that we have an intent to provide more additional funds for support of foster youth, but there's no funds appropriated to the bill?
There are no additional state funds, and part of this, and this is legislation, if I'm not mistaken, was sponsored by the Burton Foundation, and the idea was to try and raise some either private foundation dollars or additional dollars that could help support these activities, as well as looking at state funding down the line.
Got it.
Any other questions or comments? Shall we move on to the federal?
Thank you.
You already did federal.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't know if there was something else there. Okay, we will now move on to item 4.5, first of the information area, report on prerequisites and co-requisites.
President Baca, board members, Chancellor Harris. This report is one each year, so this is an annual report. We've done it 3 years now, and it is the establishment of prereqs, coreqs, and advisories through each college during the academic year. Just let me give you a quick update. Courses, of course, are developed by our faculty with significant review by content of their colleagues, in departments, through divisions, and on curriculum committees. Prerequisites identify the necessary and appropriate body of knowledge or skills that students will need to possess prior to enrolling in a particular course, or which students need to acquire in simultaneous enrollment in a co-requisite course. Let me give you an example. Science, for example. Chemistry could potentially be a prerequisite for a physiology course. If any of you have taken chemistry or physiology, chemistry helped a lot. First, the dialogue comes with the discipline faculty within biology. Then the interdisciplinary dialogue with chemistry. The evaluation of the course content includes entry-level skills needed for success before it even starts through the curriculum process to determine if there needs to be a prerequisite. You also might see a prerequisite with a basic writing in an intro to chemistry class, or even potentially one of our CTE courses. So there's a number of mechanisms on campus for scrutiny to have these programs become prerequisites or co-requisites. Now, Dean Woodard has been the one who has shepherded this project for the last 3 years, and I wanted him to give you a quick update on just the analysis that he did.
Good afternoon. How you doing? LeBaron Woodard, Dean of Academic Affairs in the Chancellor's Office. Chancellor Harris, President Baca, and board members. The only thing that I would really wanted to point out is that this regulation is only about 3 years old, and having the colleges to report out the number of prerequisites, co-requisites, advisories that they have done. So we've had some increases and decreases. So if you look at the first year, we actually went from the first year to the second year. There was like an 82% increase in the number of total courses that were created and reported to the Chancellor's Office. And then in the third year, we went down to around 22% of those numbers. Of the 112 colleges, 83 of them reported by August 1st, which is the Title V requirement. This number has been in flux, but statistically, we at a 95% confidence level and a 5% margin of error with that 83. So we feel comfortable that the numbers that we have provided you analytically is within a statistical acceptable range, even though we didn't have 100% of the colleges reporting. Sometimes it takes a little while to get the colleges up to speed on reporting. We try not to overburden the colleges with requirements, but since we did put this regulation in place that the board approved that they had to report by August 1, we're not required to report out to you. There's nothing in Title V that requires that, but we wanted to provide you with some outcomes of the regulation that you put into place 3 years ago. And that I can answer any particular questions that you have about some of the numbers that the charts and tables reflect, that pretty much it would.
Vice President Bond.
So at the time we made the regulatory change, there were some within the system that were worried about equity impacts as we pursued this. Have we tracked that, and have we seen some of those issues arise within the system as a result?
No, our reporting, at least from the college's standpoint, has just been on what they have created and where the analysis and how they have, what methods they have.
Is there a way to assess whether this system is having an unequal effect on certain populations who seek to enroll and take courses?
Sure. I think that each year we've gotten a little better at how we've designed our survey instrument and the questions that we've asked, as well as the workshops, what we learned. We try to have discussions with the colleges before we actually put out the survey instrument. And this is one of the things that we want to do a better job of in the future. But the previous surveys really focused on just the numbers and not necessarily impact. But there are ways that we can begin to get at that.
But as of now, as far as we know now, we don't anticipate some of those negative impacts on
No,
student population.
no, not at this particular point in time. But we will continue to do further research, and I believe with the equity plans that colleges have been funded, we should be able to also look at some of that information and data and see how it may tie back. And we can put into the survey certain questions that can ask for that information.
Member Valenti?
Just to follow up on the number of colleges that didn't report, is there any additional outreach? And the reason I even ask that is 2 of the colleges are in my district where I work. I mean, so it shows 89 colleges, so it shows 22 not reporting.
This is correct. We identified the 89 colleges that did report. It's not our intent to really overtly embarrass any particular college. We work with our chief instructional officers to put the request out. We do send reminders, but the report is due by August 1st, and we put out information in early May. Saying this report is coming up and the instrument, so they have about a 90-day window to complete. But as you know, during the summer, it's sometimes very difficult to gather certain information. We try not to be heavy-handed, but
We'll do a couple of other things. You know, curriculum committees and faculty are working very hard right now on their ADTs. They've got a December deadline there, and on this report as well. We'll keep making sure that we're doing everything we can to get 100% in the future. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Very good. Thank you very much. Before I go to board member reports, I want to note that member Natalie Berg did not join us for this meeting, and certainly want to pass on my condolences, our condolences to her in the passing of her husband, Peter Finnegan, who is, as some of you may recall, was here with us the last meeting, and he often did join us at these meetings when member Berg was here, and you know, always interesting, but I did want to pass condolences off to her and her family for his passing. Member Hawkins?
No report.
Okay, Member Belansky?
Just to note that I will be attending the Strengthening Student Success Conference offered by the RP Group. I think it's a really great annual event that they do, and the workshops are really good. And I hope this is appropriate. I'd like to just say thank you to the various vice chancellors who have provided information that has been very helpful to me, that's been done outside of the meetings, you know, ranging from concurrent enrollment information and research information to the AB 86 because of the 2 pathways in AB 86, to the willingness to look at why Assembly Bill 1029, which sunsetted in January 2014, didn't get continued for standalone courses, and I'll be glad to hear that. I just want to also, since we've mentioned Peter, I'd like to mention somebody else in our system who died recently, who died unexpectedly, and from my opinion was a really stellar individual in terms of the kind of commitment he made throughout the system, and that's Randy Lawson at Santa Monica, who was an executive vice president of Instruction and Student Services. It was just unexpected, and Randy was really involved everywhere. So I'd like to just remember him.
Member Abeles?
Yeah, I'd like to echo the same thing. I really appreciate the Vice Chancellor's for all their information this past meeting yesterday and today. I think it was a very productive meeting that we had, so I really appreciate that. Just some things to report. Last month, I was invited by the governor to attend a luncheon for the President of Mexico and the governor here in Sacramento, which is really cool. Mr. Chancellor Harris was there as well, so that was kind of nice. A couple things that are going on. I'm actually going to West Hills at the end of the month, so I'm going to go to visit the West Hills campus to get more familiar with the campus there, so I appreciate that. Meeting with Peralta Chancellor Ortiz this week, so that's happening as well. And scheduling October, meeting with Los Rios. So that's what's going on with me and what I'm looking forward to do.
Member Budnick?
Great. I've had multiple incredible meetings with Chancellor Francisco Rodriguez of Los Angeles and Monty Perez, president of Mission College. Last weekend, we just moved 20 young men and women, all who have experienced the foster care system or the juvenile justice system, into an apartment that a bunch of organizations came together to master lease, and they're all going to school at Mission College. And Mission College is literally rolling out the red carpet and providing just incredible support services for those young people attending college for their first time. Thanks to Ms. Estelano, took a great trip to San Diego and met with Constance Carroll, and looking to work with the Board of Supervisors down there to pilot another housing program down there for youth that have hit the juvenile justice system, the foster care system, and vets returning home. And in the prison rounds, went to Calipatria and Centinela Prison and have recently made contact with Mr. Jaime, who's running in the Imperial Valley District, and introduced him to the wardens at each of the prisons, and they're both going to start a college program at both of those two prisons. Visited Ironwood State Prison outside of Palm Springs, where Palo Verde Community College has about 350 inmates enrolled as full-time college students, working towards their AA degrees, and now just started the first ever online pilot ever in a California prison. So for the first time ever in the history of the California prison system, inmates are taking online classes. And went to the Ventura Youth Correctional Facility in Ventura, where they have an incredible partnership between Coastline Community College, Ventura Community College, where the Ventura teachers actually come into the facility and teach, as well as Cal State Channel Islands, where the students and grad students come in and actually tutor and proctor and give presentations on their majors and inspire. And looking to see Pasadena City College with Mr. Baum in the next few weeks, as well as going with Mr. Baca up into his neck of the woods and seeing a few places.
Member Van Loon?
Yes, I was able to attend the July Student Senate for Community Colleges of California meeting, and had the pleasure of getting acquainted with the newly elected officers from that meeting, as well as all the other regional leaders. And I was also able to attend the SSCCC Region 5 meeting during August, and it's exciting to see some of their goals and plans for this year, and I look forward to collaborating with them further.
Member Solano?
I had a chance to also have an introductory conversation with Chancellor Francisco Rodriguez in Los Angeles, really an amazing, dynamic guy. Also wanted to thank Vice Chancellor Tom von Quinlivan for setting up a call with Tim Rainey, where we got to spend quite a bit of time talking about the collaborative efforts between the California Workforce Investment Board and the community colleges. So it was really useful and very helpful in preparing for this meeting. I know that President Baca is trying to arrange a tour for us, we think, next Tuesday. So we're really excited about going over to Mount San Antonio College and possibly Citrus College. And then I, too, will be heading down to San Diego to meet with Constance Carroll in the next month or two.
Member Reed?
This afternoon at 2:30, we have an audit committee meeting on the foundation, and I'd like to mention that we have a clean audit, and that's a credit to Keitha Mills and her staff.
Member Malumet?
I have nothing to report about my activities, but I did want to mention that Peter Finnegan was a former member of this board, so
Yes, he was.
we think well of him.
Thank you.
I have an appointment set up in a couple of weeks to go to see Diablo Valley College, and I plan to attend the November statewide conference down in the desert.
had the opportunity to go to a couple of veterans conferences, female veterans and male and female veterans, and it was really enlightening. And since then, I've been getting more emails from some of them that are attending the colleges. I just said, send me whatever pros, cons, good, bad, and I will take your names off it and address it up to, as I call, the chain of command. So I've been working with BACA on this, and we're excited to go out to some of the colleges to go check them out. So I'd like to sort of challenge the board, I guess, with this is we need to get more of our advocacy or our committees going, that we can start going out to more of the colleges to represent them, to be their voice, to bring it back to the board. Because it's sort of nice when we all talk with people and they reach out to us, and it's like you have to be very politically correct when you get your emails, but I think it's important that we are their voice. So we need to, I would like to know the proper format to bring it to the board sometimes, and because some veterans issues, that I'm going through Lindsay Sins on some stuff, so I sort of send my information out. But I love the fact that, like when the lieutenant spoke yesterday, the passion that we felt, and just how you could see how it impacted him. You know, those are your, not only your veterans, but that's also your, I like the word special needs, but any challenge or disability. When they bring that, that was very empowering what he did. And so the schools should be very proud, and the board should be very proud that that's the type of people we're bringing up through the system. So I think that is a definite success. So I'm proud to be on this board.
Vice President Bond.
I also feel very grateful that we were able to have time with Peter Finnegan over the last several years. I think it was a blessing to all of us to be able to see him, and I'm deeply grateful to Chancellor Harris and Member Belinsky who were able to make it to the memorial service in his memory, and I wanted to convey those thoughts as well. Just in my neck of the woods, we've gone through a leadership transition at Pasadena City College, and there's a new interim superintendent president, and I want to also extend my appreciation to the chancellor who asked me to convey to the district the system's willingness to be supportive while it goes through a leadership transition at the district. There are a couple of things that I'm going to mention in board member comments, but we'll talk about separately. Chancellor Harris keeps us apprised of what's happening in the system, and sometimes he'll pass along anonymous emails or things like that. And I think it's very important to have a safe whistleblower system within the system, but at the same time, I have to say, anonymous emails sent repeatedly do not have a powerful impact on my deliberation. So I think it's important to have a very good whistleblower and anonymous system, but to the extent that we spend a lot of time responding to anonymous accusations, I don't know if that's the highest best use of the system's time. I'm actually going to be part of an accreditation team. I'm going on a site visit, but I'm going to Mecca, Saudi Arabia for a site visit. I leave on Sunday, flying to Jeddah to visit Al-Qura University to evaluate their College of Social Sciences as part of an accreditation agency, and we'll be conducting that visit. I've done it one other time in the past, but I look forward to sharing. So it's a co-ed delegation. It's in a co-ed university, but it'll be interesting to share with you all that. I want to thank the board members for nominating me to be president of the board, and I think it's great actually that many people, and it shows the health of this system and how great this board is, that multiple people want to serve in leadership positions on the Board of Governors, and I think it's a sign of good health. And lastly, for those who are coming to the League Conference in Rancho Mirage, I'm passing out a brochure because as a cultural excursion, I spend half my time working at a nonprofit trust in the desert. It's the Annenberg Estate, where President Reagan spent every New Year's Eve, where President Nixon, 40 years ago today, went on the day he was pardoned by President Ford, and that President Obama has been 3 times in the past year to have high-level meetings with, including what they call the Sunnyland Summit with the President of China. And for those who are going to be there and stay till Friday afternoon, I'd be delighted to host a private tour and reception for the Board of Governors and leadership too. So please make plans to come, and I'll make sure you get the inside look at that, too.
What's the date?
That will be the 21st. Chancellor Harris will be giving the keynote address on Thursday night, the 20th, I believe, at which we will then be hosting a reception. The Board of Governors will be hosting a reception. Friday, the 21st, President Napolitano gives the keynote address. And then in the afternoon, the estate closes at 4 o'clock for tours. And after the estate closes, for those who are around, I'll take invite for a private visit.
Okay.
And you'll see, just one other thing, we've referenced it twice, but if you turn to page 21, you'll see a picture. That's from when Justice Kennedy was meeting with the College of the Desert students, and just earlier this year.
We have one public comment?
Yes. We have one public comment, and a student that I've known very well from Pasadena City College and a member of the Student Senate, John Frazier. Yeah, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the introduction, Vice President Baum. Thank you, President Baca and members of the board and Chancellor's office staff, as well as the Chancellor. I'm sorry. I did want to mention a few things for the Student Senate. I did miss the first parts of your retreat, so I do apologize. I wish I was able to attend. I do also want to mention that I'm very happy that Vice President Baum has received a nomination for president. He was very responsive as my own personal trustee at Pasadena City College, and so I think the board will be in good hands. I also wanted to thank Member Van Loom for attending the Student Senate's the very first meeting of the Student Senate. We held our elections and appointed members to our committees, so we didn't actually have a whole lot to actually show Member Loom. I hope that we'll be able to deliver on that at our next meeting, if you'll be able to attend. I look forward to participating through the Consultation Council, and I think that the work of this system is incredibly important and powerful, and I really appreciate the opportunity to invite students to that table to actually participate. I feel like California is one of the only states that actually has that opportunity, and I really hope that we can maximize that. I really look forward to working with members of the board on trying to maximize that opportunity. And finally, I do want to thank the Chancellor's Office and especially Vice Chancellor Michalowski and members of the Chancellor's Office staff that have contributed their own time and dedication to the Student Senate. And that concludes my comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Meeting is adjourned. I'll see you in Foothill De Anza in November.
Great. Maybe next week.
Maybe next week.